And we're back to the number one UFC picks podcast in the world, No Brainer MMA. This episode is brought to you by Blue Chew. Take a handful, see how you feel. We're gonna get right into this. Gunnar Nelson versus Bryan Barberena. Gunnar Nelson wasn't able to fight for 2.5 years from COVID. Apparently, Iceland had some pretty strict COVID rules. No injuries or anything like that. He was supposed to make his return last year against Daniel Rodriguez, but D-Rod got hurt and he was replaced by Takashi Sato. And Gunnar Nelson put on a clinic. No signs of ring rust. Played his game, dominated his grappling, showing off that third degree BJJ black belt under the one and only Renzo Gracie, while also landing 140 total strikes at 80% accuracy, including 70 significant strikes in the third round alone, with a majority of that being just from some dominant ground and pound. And his cardio held up great. Nothing really bad to say about that performance at all. It wasn't the highest level of competition, but it was a good, tune-up fight to have back. He would have been a lot worse shape if he actually fought Daniel Rodriguez. And not only did he look good, it looked like he turned back time a little bit even. His stand-up looked decent. It was always like kind of up in the air with Gunnar Nelson. But it looked good. It looked improved. Gunnar hadn't landed that many significant strikes in a fight since 2014. And it was his second most in the UFC ever landed. Time off from fighters is so tough. It's like, are people going to look like John Jones when they get back? Or are they going to look like... Jimmy Flick, submission artist. No offense to Jimmy Flick. He took off like 3 years though. I mean, he was really killing it, and he came back and he just looked like he didn't belong. Sorry, Jimmy.
I'm sorry, Jimmy.
And he's gonna be taking on Gunnar Nelson's gonna be taking on Bryan Barberena, who is a very interesting guy. He's a great striker, high volume, technical, really doesn't slow down at all. But he's got a huge hole in his game. He's a fish out of water once someone starts grappling. He just cannot stop any takedowns. And I think he's a BJJ blue belt, but you would never I guess he gets comfortable on his back. Maybe that's what it is. But like he's not a submission threat or anything like that. And it's kind of a shame because he does have a very fun fight style since 2020, which is over the span of 6 fights for him, which actually is a lot. He's been taken down 26 times. Not good. He even lost to Jason Witt, who was one of the worst fighters that got signed from that COVID era when the roster was just so thin because no one could fight. And old man Matt Brown, who's a 29 UFC veteran, 42 years old now, so way past his prime. He knocked a career high takedowns on Bryan Barberena, and that was only like 3 fights ago in 2021. I love Matt Brown, but he is a shell of his old self. But some of these guys I'm naming aren't even grapplers, but for some reason against Bryan Barberena, anyone can be a grappler.
Oh, you're a wrestler now.
Stylistically, this fight's going to be a fucking handful for Barberena. I'm going to have to go with Gunnar Nelson. Gunnar Nelson is just known for that grappling. He's a absolute submission artist. DFS wise, I think Nelson is a pretty good play too. I know his price is kind of steep, 9,200, but besides Gunnar's last time out, which ended in a decision, and another fight back in 2013, all of his fights in the UFC, 7 out of the 9 of his career wins inside the UFC has ended by submission, and I think he's gonna bounce back with a submission in this one. He's overdue, and I think he wants to make a statement. So I'm gonna be going with Gunnar Nelson in this one.